going to start with our guest, James Bach. James, welcome.
Hey.
Welcome to you. Thanks for joining us tonight. We're hoping.
Gotta be here.
Yeah. So far, so good, right?
Yeah, actually, good.
Turns out pretty well.
50% done.
Yep. Well, as a cast organizer.
Casualties, 0.
0. You were the program chair for this year, correct?
That's right. I put the whole program together, except for the emerging topics thing.
Right.
And this is the very first time in the 12-year history of the context-driven school that we've had a worldwide gathering of context-driven testing thinking leaders.
And everything.
It's
Yeah,
never
it's
happened
all
before.
context-driven.
So this is in a way, it's kind of the coming out party for context-driven in a certain way. It's kind of the ball gown is on, and we're walking down the glass stairway while all the suitors look on. So,
You looked very good today, James.
oh, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. I was worried if I didn't want the gown to be too much of a country fashion, you know. I wanted to be the latest. Anyway, so I've got like the context-driven guy from Bangladesh,
Right.
the
Joining us.
context-driven guy from Germany.
Right.
Yes, there's one of them.
It's an international crowd.
There's a team of context-driven testers from Sweden, a whole team.
Oh, wow.
Yes.
Oh.
And I talked to a gentleman from Romania also, I believe.
That's right, Alex Roteru
Yeah.
from Romania, who's coming. He's the guy. There's two guys I know of in Romania. There's the guy from Estonia couldn't make it.
Oh, right. Yeah.
One of the Indians couldn't make it. There's several in India. There's a bunch now in India.
Right.
And one of them, in particular, was able to get to us to see us, Ajay. And we'll be giving him an award tomorrow morning for the based on his weekend testers.
Oh yeah, you actually talk a little bit about that award. What I know Ajay is receiving
It's the Bach
it.
Brothers Legion of Merit, a special
Not a big
award,
title at all, right?
which we have instituted. Actually, we were inspired by Ajay to do this award. We decided we had to give an award out to the guys who started weekend testers. And if we did that, then we have to give an award to Pradeep Sandarajan, who inspired the guys who started the weekend testers. And so we're giving 5 awards out, but 2 that we have the certificates made up for tomorrow morning we'll put out there. And John and I feel that we want to periodically recognize testers that we feel ought to be famous and aren't famous yet, or not as famous as they should be.
So this is going to be a regular thing.
Yeah, it's
yearly or bi-yearly or something like that.
I think it'll be a regular thing, and we're not planning to give the award to famous people to make ourselves more aggrandized, but rather to try to share our reputation with people who we feel deserve more of a reputation, who've done heroic things for software testing. And I think Weekend Testers is a really heroic thing, completely non-commercial.
Yeah.
It's a lot of work. It's people putting themselves out there and posting their test results, doing real testing, taking chances. And amazing that it started in India and spread. I just wouldn't have thought that it would have started in India.
Yeah, and that it's been very innovative, and you hear a lot about it on the web, and now it's just starting to get picked up here in the U.S., which is nice.
Yeah, and it just goes to show something I said. I think I wrote it in 2004 on my blog after I had taught in India once. I thought, these folks, they're like a sleeping giant. When they decide they're going to wake up and really use their brains, they are going to be fabulous leading testers in the industry.
Right.
And it's just that there's a lot of testers over there, but there's a management culture that's constantly dissuading them from taking any risks, being in any way avant-garde in the testing world. And I thought maybe they're just not, very smart or something. But I went over there and I trained them, and I found that there's just intellect all over the place.
Right.
It's just they're
not made it out.
They're sports cars stuck in first gear.
Yep.
And all they need to do is shift a
Just a little
second,
bit of a
shift a
shift.
third, burn some rubber, and they could be doing amazing innovations in our craft. And so a few Indian testers have really started stepping up and doing that, and Ajay is one of them. And I think others will follow his example and be inspired by it. And Pradeep Sundararajan Jones example, and a few other people, Meeta Prakash, Srini Kulkarni. There are several now that I know by name.
Excellent.
And when I started, years ago, I didn't know any Indian testers by name, and now I know several, more than several. And I'm very eager to go back there and do some more training. So, and I think that will push the Americans to do better, and it'll push the Swedes to do better.
Well, it pushes
I think
everybody, right?
There's some
right.
good-natured competition. I wouldn't say it's competition. We're sort of a context-driven family.
Yeah, a little
helping each
pride,
other out.
though.
But I think it could be helpful to get a little spicy, little bit of nationalism going.
So how do I get my own Legion of Testing award? I even forgot the name.
Well, what you have to do is, it's Legion of Merit.
There you go.
It's the Bach Brothers Legion of
Legion of
Merit.
Merit.
Legion
It's
of Testing.
modeled
It's
after
close
the
enough,
French
yeah.
Legion of Merit award. Anyway.
He's trying to rig
first
it.
of all, before you get too famous, Tim, because
Yeah,
once
oh,
you're
wow.
too famous, you're disqualified from getting it.
that's
So
true.
you have to
That's
be relatively unknown.
Okay, well, I'm leaving this podcast.
Yeah. So you're actually
This
not
could
that
ruin
famous
it.
yet, Tim. You are actually not that famous yet.
That's true.
You're
No,
on
I
the
am.
edge. You're getting close,
Ooh.
but you're not all that famous. So what you have to do is you got to do something heroic. You have to make a heroic contribution to the craft of software testing.
Mm-hmm.
So, and by heroic, I mean a contribution that no one could have expected you to make. That's what heroism means to me.
Mm-hmm.
It means that you make a choice to do something difficult or risky for the benefit of your community. That's the heroic cycle.
Mm-hmm.
I'm a big fan of Joseph Campbell and the hero's journey. So I don't mean something that's superhuman. I mean something that's truly human, but something that was difficult and that no one could have compelled you to do.
Mm-hmm.
So, like for instance, a fireman running into a building, that's not heroic.
No.
Unless all the other firemen are saying, well, don't run in there.
Don't do that.
That's too dangerous.
Too dangerous.
And then it becomes heroic to go in
Right.
there. Maybe stupid too, but
Right.
heroic. But to make the choice to become a fireman and get paid that little to do that, that's kind of a heroic choice of career.
Right, right.
Anyway, we look for some kind of heroism. For instance, Pradeep suffered for the fact that he was context driven. He suffered. He didn't get work that he otherwise could have gotten. He could have definitely made a lot more money if he had gone with the flow.
Mm-hmm.
He decided, no, I want to be a really good tester by my own standards and by the standards of these people I respect. And he suffered for that. And so we're honoring him because of that suffering.
Excellent. Excellent. So one of the other things that you're going to cover in your tutorial on Wednesday, actually, is leadership within the context-driven community. And we wanted to talk to you a little bit tonight about what leadership means to you in this community and how folks that might be watching this webcast could be a part of that.
Okay. Well, what I mean by leadership is that we're using ideas in the testing community that are at least 40 years old, routinely. At least 40 years old. I have a book from 40 years ago, Program Test Methods. It's actually 39 years ago, nearly 40 years ago, which is the first testing book. There were testing papers before that, but there were chapters in books, but there was never a testing book before that was called a testing book. So it's Program Test Methods by Bill Hetzel. And I've got that book, and I go through it, and I see them talk about test cases and how it's important to have your specification completely defined in advance and all this stuff. And that was kind of the beginning of what I call the factory school of software testing. And that's very easy for people to just languish in there and just could keep thinking that way, and you won't get fired in many places.
As long as you follow it.
If you just do the conventional thing, there's some new testing standard, some new ISO testing standard that's all based on all that crap. And that means that in order to change that, in order to move toward intellectual software testing, skilled software testing, which is the kind of thing we believe in, you have to go against the flow. You got to swim against that current. So leadership to me in the testing field is to swim against that, to be a role model, and to show a way to do that and to thrive while doing that. And that will inspire other people, and eventually we'll get lots of people to swim against that current, and eventually the current will change. It will have to change if we can get enough people to swim in that new direction. It's the same thing with women's suffrage. It was the same thing with universal suffrage, with civil rights, with pushing back against colonial imperialism. Throughout the history of humanity, people's values have changed. People's ethics have changed, and things that used to be acceptable became not acceptable. I would like to live to see the day where it becomes unacceptable to have unskilled testers follow test scripts and call that any kind of a reasonable practice. It is a totally unreasonable practice. It's a ridiculous, reckless practice. And most people disagree with me about that, and I think we need leadership to change those ideas.
So how does an average tester, someone who might be watching from home, how do they start? Where do you start with this?
Well, you start with study. You start with personal study.
Okay.
You start with the ambition to say, I'm going to learn how to test. And there are certainly books I can suggest. For instance, my favorite book to suggest is Introduction to General Systems Thinking by Jerry Weinberg, which I think is the basic textbook for all testing, even though it doesn't talk about testing very much. There's a tiny bit about testing in it. There's nothing about software testing. Mostly it's about observing complex systems, understanding complex systems, and avoiding being fooled by complex systems. But the kinds of things in there that's the way we need to think. More or less.
More or less.
And I say to people, go read that. Read it. It's not an easy book to read, but if you read it, you're going to glean some really important things from it. And that's could be the beginning of your expansion into truly thinking like a tester.
So the other thing that we've got you on the slate for is the keynote tomorrow morning, which we're going to be broadcasting.
Yes.
What can people expect from that tomorrow?
Well, I'm going to be talking about new cool things. And so I've been talking to people a little bit around the conference about things that they think are new and interesting. And then I have my own work. This was originally part of this bookend concept where Kem was going to do a keynote on the history of the context-driven movement, and I was going to try to look toward the future and say, here's where I think we're going. Excuse me. And now Kem's thing didn't work out. However, I think that Michael Bolton did a pretty good job of talking about some of the history. Of course, his history went back to 1660.
Yeah, it went back a little ways.
And Pyrrho, 400 BC, mentioned that too. So he did some connecting to history there. So I'm trying to look forward. I'm trying to talk to people about what's new. And so, for instance, I'm going to talk about coaching.
Oh, right.
The trend
the
that
Skype
I'm
coaching.
working on, and several other people are working on, toward developing systematic ways of coaching testers, especially long-distance coaching.
We've actually got Anne Marie on tomorrow night to talk about
Really?
Skype coaching. Yeah.
I'm working with Anne Marie on a book. Mostly she's working on it, and I'm taking credit for it, but it's really great stuff, and I really like this idea of other people doing a lot of work and giving me credit. Yeah, she does a lot of work on it. We're both doing lots and lots of coaching sessions, and then we analyze the coaching sessions together, and then we're working up the structure for a book. And we just a couple days ago, we came up with this beautiful diagram of the elements of coaching that we're using to organize our book. So I'm excited about that. So that's one of the cool new things. Another cool new thing is I am now working with 2 major global companies on creating a professional testing culture, and they've basically standardized on, or in the process of standardizing on, rapid software testing, a context-driven approach to testing, a skilled approach to testing, and when they standardize on rapid software testing, it's a little bit weird because they're people who are told this. They're looking for, well, where are the rules that we're supposed to follow? Well, the rule is you get good at your job and then you do whatever you think is right. That's the rule.
Based on
so you have to get good at your job. So really, it's about the process of getting good at your job. That's the system that we're putting in place, and there are lots of heuristics that we use and lots of different kinds of documentation and stuff like that. But the important thing is you get good at your job. And so it's very different from the methodology that they're expecting. And you get a different kind of resistance from that. You don't get people resisting in the sense of saying, I won't do that. I'm not going to think for myself. I want to think for myself. Wait, you don't get that kind of resistance. You get a different kind of resistance, which is, I want to cling to the familiar. I want to keep counting test cases doing other things that don't make any sense because it feels safe, and so the management's job is to make it a little less safe for them. So that's like a cool new thing. I've never had large companies push that before, and I'm now in the middle of that with a couple of these companies. One of which is Progressive Insurance, and the other one. Their legal department won't quite let me announce who they are yet, but they're a major global financial institution, and they have top management support. And I just spent 2 weeks in Singapore working with them, so it's very exciting what they're doing. So that's really new.
So that's tomorrow.
I think that could change things in a big way. So I'm just going to try to help people see how this is a growing, thriving thing. It's not recycling ideas from 40 years ago, which is what the ISTQB likes to do. Every talk is the same talk year after year.
So your brother is actually on next, but he left the room. Tell my grandma, who I know is watching, what the ISTQB is, and
the ISTQB is an organization of people who want to profit from the ignorance of others.
Awesome. And
they do this by trying to get people to believe that they need to be certified as software testers by taking a baloney little test that takes a couple of hours to prepare for if you have absolutely no experience. Imagine if they gave out airline pilot certifications on that basis.
Right. So compare it to like the SAT.
Certified.
Compared to like the SAT, how does that compare?
I never took the SAT because I don't believe in all that standardized testing.
That's right. You're asking the wrong person.
I did take the SSAT,
which is
the secondary school admission test, which I took when I was 14 because I was possibly going to go to a private school and they needed me to do that.
Yeah.
And I remember it being fun, easy, and I don't remember anything else. I was 14. What the hell? What the hell I know?
Yeah.
So I bet you the SAT is way
people prepare for
harder.
like months and months and months. So I assume. Yeah.
Sure. You can argue about the relevance of the SAT. We can certainly do that. But there's so many problems with this test. I challenged a prominent instructor of the ISTQB class. I said, when you took the test, did you say what you honestly thought were the correct answers, or did you just say, what do they want me to say, and I'll just say that? And she admitted to me right there, she just answered what she thought that the test designers wanted to hear. And that just, to me, that immediately says bankruptcy, moral bankruptcy. This is just a game to you guys, isn't it? It's not a game to me. I take my profession very seriously. I want to be an excellent tester. I don't want anything getting in the way of that. I am not going to make any compromises. I don't associate with people who make compromises.
Right.
I think that is childish. I think it is cowardly. I refuse to be a part of it, and I hope that no one else will be a part of it. I think that's what I'm talking about when I talk about context-driven leadership. Is that we say, you know what, there's certain kinds of ethical principles that we do not have to compromise. And I don't compromise. I don't compromise. And sometimes people say, someone told me in a podcast the other day, well, you have the luxury not to do that. Excuse me? I suffered. I suffer because I won't compromise. There's lots of work that I won't get. I've had classes canceled on me when they find out that I'm not ISTQB supportive. I was supposed to go teach in Malaysia, and then they guess they read my website and found out, oh, he doesn't like the STKB. Oh no! And they canceled the class. I had a signed contract, and they canceled the class. You know, it's and who knows what other things I'm not being offered because I won't go in for that nonsense. I suffer for it. I have a worldwide clientele, but it's a small clientele because I have to go all over the world to find people with the kind of vision who are who want the kind of thing that I do, and what I do is very demanding. I demand that you learn how to test. Then there's no shortcut to that except practice, practice, practice. And you know this, Tim, because you're like our kind of our community's poster boy for being like this.
I do what I
for
can.
working. You were one of the wolves. We called you one of the wolves.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
When I first met you, we gave you some testing tests,
Exercises, yeah.
some exercises, and you ripped into them so much we started joking. Oh, these guys are like wolf cubs. It was great, and that earned you a reputation. That's an aspect of reputation right there.
Yeah.
And I'm going to take all my brother's time. If
You
you
should.
come
I
back.
mean,
We're
he
just
lives
going to eat
around
it
you.
up. Yeah.
I
We'll
love
just
this.
keep
I
going.
love taking his stuff. He's my younger brother.
You've been doing it for years.
Been doing that since
Although
you were young.
my brother worked for me for 2 years.
Oh no, he's back.
Something.
He's
we
back.
discovered
He's
something
back.
about
He's
each
back.
other. You work for me. We discovered that I'm much better working for him than he is
Well,
working for me.
catch James tomorrow morning.
Thank you very much, James.
He's going to be doing his keynotes, new cool things,